It's been too long since we talked birds and bees with our good friend from North Missouri. She was on the podcast episode number 15, way back when we were podcast babies. And she's returning to talk about her championship bird dogs and what's going on with the bees and butterflies out there in the world today. I'm Brandon Butler.
I'm Nathan Shags McLeod.
And I am Elsa Gallagher with the Bee and Butterfly Habitat Fund.
Welcome to the Driftwood Outdoors podcast. Yeah, of course, I knew you were on the podcast before because I was on it with you. But I was doing some research today, just preparing. I was like, man, I wonder what episode that was. And sure enough, episode 15, you were on with us, titled the Bee and Butterfly Habitat Fund, Elsa Gallagher. And some of the topics, I like the 9 stages of a Midwest goodbye, lack of habitat, the decline of pollinators, monarch life cycles, wonders of wildlife, worst thing you've done drunk, mystery bait bucket, and gear review. So you have to go back and listen to that. That was quite the episode, it sounds like.
Well, Shags, I hope I don't have any updates on what is the worst thing I've done drunk, but there are some updates on pollinator habitat for sure.
Well, it's funny how a good brewery night can bring people back together. Both of you attended the Retrieving Freedom night at Logboat Brewery in Columbia. And we said, man, we haven't had Elsa on the podcast for a while. We started talking about bird dogs. You had your GSP up there. I'm sure we're going to hear more about her later in the podcast. But you were starting to tell us more of the exciting things that are going on with the job. So why don't you kind of jump right into what you've been up to out there, trying to save the grasslands.
It's hard really to call it a job, Brandon, when you love it so much. But yeah. So there is a lot going on for monarch butterflies right now, as folks that are kind of in the know will understand that they were petitioned for listing as an endangered or threatened species way back when, and that is finally coming to fruition. There will finally be a hearing. They will finally decide whether or not the monarch butterfly will be listed as an endangered species or whether it will be listed as a threatened species. But it will not be kicking the can down the road anymore. We've passed that point. It will now be listed one or the other here in upcoming legislation with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So it's a bittersweet moment. We all know there was concerns about monarch butterflies and the habitat, but it's really frustrating to know that you've spent 10 20 years working on habitat and it hasn't resulted in the population uptick that we would have liked to have seen. But just like quail populations, so there's weather that's a issue. There's other issues that are problems with monarch butterfly populations, but the passion behind it is pretty strong right now. So that's pretty cool to see.
Well,
yeah,
really,
it's not. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to ask because really quickly, we all know the lifespan of the monarch butterfly, but a lot of people might not. And I think it's one of the most fascinating things that happens in nature on how these butterflies are born and they know exactly where they need to go in their life cycle. And some of them are just from a stage to a stage. So Elsa, if you could just give us a quick rundown of a life cycle of a monarch butterfly and how fascinating that actually is.
They're super interesting, and they're an insect, and people don't think about them as an insect, but they are an insect, totally. But so the monarch butterfly, let's just say it overwinters in the Oyamel fir forest in Mexico. Very small location. Population size is measured by how many hectares or acres is covered by these monarchs that are overwintering, that are, in the hundreds of thousands in these trees. And then they fly up, let's just say Texas. So they hit Austin, Texas sometime, and for a music festival, and they happen to just lay an egg. So they lay an egg on a common milkweed plant for the most part. That egg then hatches, and then that little guy will fly up to, say, Missouri. He's going to fly to the logboat and look for some milkweed around the logboat area. And that one's going to lay an egg. That egg will then hatch. That monarch butterfly will fly up to, say, Minnesota. It'll be up in the Twin Cities. It will lay an egg. that butterfly will then be fourth generation butterfly, if I've counted correctly. And that fourth generation, called the super generation, are a little bit of a bigger butterfly. And those butterflies make the migration all the way back to that fir forest in Mexico, never having seen for 3 generations where it started. And they just have that innate system in place to take them back there. It's a unique migration strategy, and it's just super interesting, I think. Everybody
Yeah.
loves the monarch.
I find it fascinating that just, your one generation knows I need to go from this stretch to this stretch and then lay the eggs and then die. And then the bigger one, like, okay, now we got to go all the way back down to Mexico. My job is to get back down to Mexico. It's just absolutely incredible to me to wrap my head around how that's all embedded in this insect's DNA to understand what exactly their purpose is in life.
And you think about the conservation challenges associated with that and where we have to provide this habitat, because we often tie milkweed, common milkweed, because it is 90% or more of the monarch caterpillars are raised, hatched on a common milkweed, and that's what they eat. And then they go into their chrysalis and then become the butterfly. They You have to provide all that habitat with the milkweed, but then you have to think about the migration as well, and then feeding them the whole way. So you have to provide nectar resources for those monarch butterflies all the way back as well, late in the season. So that's where having a really cool seed mix kind of comes into play when you've got good blooming nectar producing plants early and late. It's a challenge though. And again, we just got back from the North American Summit, Monarch Summit, and there were people down in Mexico. I would tell you, they are just as passionate as we are about the monarch butterfly and protecting it in their area and providing nectar resources. It was a really neat, and Canada was represented as well at this meeting. It was a pretty neat meeting for us.
Have you been to the forest in Mexico?
I have not. No, I have not. Though someone you should have on your podcast is Doug Helmers. Doug and I went to grad school together. His wife and I went to grad school together. And Doug is a retired U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service fella. And he has been down there. And those stories that they can tell of having been down to Mexico and seen those butterflies are, I think, transformative for people.
I mean,
Yeah, I'd like to do it someday.
Yeah, just trees covered. It's incredible.
So clearly not great news on the potential listing of the monarch. As you said, we had hoped that it would trend in the other direction
Sure.
with all the efforts of the last decade or two. So what does it mean to people it's going to go on the endangered list? How are things going to change? I mean, anybody that's in the grizzly bear fight right now or the wolves fight, we do have examples of the endangered species list working well for species. So if there's a glimmer of hope there, it goes on the list and it comes out a lot stronger. But what is it going to mean for people? What are the impacts of the monarch butterfly being listed?
So that's a great question, and that is something the Bee and Butterfly Habitat Fund sits on the Farmers for Monarchs group, and it's a collaborative group. We all work together to try and come up with resources and answers for some of these questions. And that is a question, especially we get from some of the farming community or maybe a utility that wonders, will this impact that I'm making, putting in a power line, will that affect monarch? And if it does, what do I do, or how can we mitigate for that? And so there's been things in place, Brandon, for the last year and a half, these process in place where you can, for lack of a better word, a layman's term, you can be kind of grandfathered in. If you're doing good things for monarchs and you continue to commit to doing good things for monarchs, there's not going to be a recourse for Fish and Wildlife Service to kind of come after you for getting rid of your milkweed plantings. And farmers, I think the Fish and Wildlife Service really understands that these monarchs are on working lands. And so I don't think the day-to-day operations of a producer or a farmer are going to change all that much. We're going to still ask people to do safe things, use pesticides safely, use herbicides safely, that type of thing. But in general, sure, we're going to still doing the same thing we always done, tell people to plant more habitat, because
Yeah.
really that's the thing you can do that really affects monarch butterflies. We can work with all the DOTs like MoDOT, trying to work on less mowing along the roadsides where it's safe to do less mowing, and leaving those patches of milkweed there for monarchs to lay eggs on. And we were already seeing some of that happen, at least in Missouri. But I guess I'm heartened by the fact there's a lot of people interested in trying to do better things for monarchs, from across the whole range. When we were at this national meeting 2 weeks ago, it was really, people are really passionate about it. And there were Department of Transportations were represented there, power plants, just all kinds of people are really trying to do more things for the habitat, which is great for all species.
Well, hopefully some sort of incentive can come out of it, we know that there are incentives out there, but when you go talk to the average person and you start talking about acronyms like EQIP and MRAP and CRP, and you want to see somebody's face glaze over pretty quick. And I myself, I want to have pollinator habitat, quail habitat, which usually go hand in hand on my farm. But I went all the way through the process of getting CRP. And when I was holding that contract at the end, and I can't ride a four-wheeler across that land at that point. If it, there's so many stipulations. I would be willing to pay out of my own pocket to put pollinator habitat in, if I could get some help with it. And I know there's ways, but it's just so hard to figure out and so hard to, explain to the average person that if that could be simplified, I think we could see a big influx, because I think I can speak for me and Shags when I say we don't like mowing grass. Like if we could replace grass with, pollinator friendly natives and not break the bank doing it, like I'm all in.
Well, let me introduce you to this group called the Bee and Butterfly Habitat Fund. What we do. So we were created in 2017 by beekeepers, wildlife biologists from Pheasants Forever, and researchers that research bees. And the organization was created at heart, Brandon, because we were frustrated with the amount of paperwork it takes to try and get a pollinator planting in through a USDA program or other federal program. Trying like these 52-page contracts, and then
Mm-hmm.
it's so expensive to get the seed too. And so that's why we really were created, to try and provide more habitat, but also to make it easier on a landowner and more inexpensive. So for our program, when you sign up with us, you get kind of one-on-one coaching a little bit. You don't get as much as you would want. We're very lucky in Missouri to have the private land conservationists and people that will come to your property and look over your property and help you with it, give you recommendations. Other states are not so lucky. So we try to provide, we have webinars through Bee and Butterfly. We have um, lots of little video links that we can send you. Hey, grass is starting to overtake my pollinator planting. What do I do now? We have a lot of like steps now that we try to help you through the process. And in the end, we provide the seed free. Once you've done the site prep and got it ready, we provide that seed up to 25 acres of free seed for you to go ahead and do those plantings. And they're a very diverse seed mix. I will tell you, we've had some research done. USGS did a research study looking at our plantings and found 8 times more native bee use of our bee and butterfly plantings than there were on CRP plantings, which doesn't surprise, as a person that walks out there in that, it doesn't surprise me as a biologist. But 6 times more floral diversity. I mean, there's just our seed mix is like, for example, our seed mix here in Missouri, when I work with you, Brandon, it's like a 69 species mix,
Mm-hmm.
the native half of it. And then we do ask you to plant clovers as well. So we have something there for the bumblebees, the honeybees, and then and a lot of people use that as a green fire break around the outside of the planting. It works really well. It's a really good complementary combination, I think, on most farms in Missouri.
Are you allowed to drive a tractor
Yeah,
on clover?
yes. Yes,
Then
you
sign
can.
sign me up. I've
And
got
and
30
we don't,
acres.
we have ours is a 5-year contract, and we just basically we just ask you to kind of like, if you had to take it out and put it back into beans or put it into something else for whatever reason,
Mm-hmm.
we ask you to pay back the cost of the seed, because we have to pass the red
Mm-hmm.
face test with our board. And if we said we put 20 acres in over here in Callaway County, we got to prove that we put those 20 acres in. And if you
Right.
take it out a year later, then we ask that you just replace the cost of that seed so we can get another 20 acres put somewhere else.
Now, do you guys do it for smaller places too? Because I mean, I don't have a farm, but I got a quarter of an acre, or I have a mound in my front yard that was just a big pile of dirt, and I put in some pollinator seeds a couple of winters ago, and it's not as nice as I'd like it to be, but it's a start. It's fun to look out the window and see some of them little flowers and plants bouncing around and realizing it's bees out there going from plant to plant. But can you help someone that may not have a farm and just has a little sloth, or even talk about how living in the city, if you just even have a window or a shelf or something like that outside, can those people help as well?
Yes, they absolutely can. Now, our niche in the system is 2 acres and larger.
Right.
However, that doesn't mean that you can't do great things on. I think I sent Brandon a picture of my little caterpillar that's on my milkweed, which is in a small garden planting right here at my house. And they're using it. They use it all year round. They're obviously laying eggs on it. So you can always make a difference, and if you can't make a difference, say you want to make a bigger difference, but you have a small place and you don't even have a place to put a garden, then we just ask, go to our website and donate so someone else can put in 5 acres. And that way you're still getting that habitat on the ground. You may not get it in your area because you're living in the city, or you've got an apartment in Columbia and you don't have a place to put plants. We absolutely are happy to do that and take donations, for our free seed program. But we are looking at developing a smaller scale something for people, just because our seed mixes are really good, and we would like to see more people planting more diversity.
So do you sell any of that mix, or is it only for the 2 acres or more that get it for free? Because that's my issue. Like, I just get a little packet, like a bunch of different packets that say are pollinators, and then I'm out there just shooting them off and that type of thing. That I need. What I'm saying is I need some guidance. So I guess I'm trying to pick your brain here on
Sure.
if I can buy some of your seed mix from you, or anything. Is that a possibility?
So that is something that we are discussing at our team meeting in Nebraska next week, is developing a program so that we can provide more, at least seed support for people. Um, and then you have some ability to do these smaller seed meat. We do have packets occasionally. We'll do for some of our partners, larger partners that we work with. We'll ask, they're doing a field day or something, or like we could have done something for a log boat, and we would be happy to partner with you guys to do something somewhere like that. But basically, if you read our habitat establishment guide, which is online and anybody has access to it, it gives you all the tips, like plant it in the winter, make sure that it gets, that hard frost and freezes all winter long, the seed. And because that'll help the natives break that seed coat and be able to germinate for you. So there's a lot of tips there. And then what I just tell you is pick some nice native plants that have more diversity, and I'm happy to share our seed mix with people to look at so they can see the breadth of the diversity of the seed mix. And then when each thing blooms, the important part is to have things that bloom early and things that bloom late, because I will tell you, you will never find a seed mix that doesn't bloom in the middle. You're always gonna, the middle's easy. It's like the bell curve. The middle's gonna be easy. All the plants bloom in the middle. So you do want to find stuff so that at the end of the year, the only thing blooming on a lot of these fields is goldenrod. At the end of the year, you'll see it in September. That's the only thing blooming if you don't have a very good seed mix. But we have 15 species that bloom late season in our Missouri mix. So it's pretty diverse mix.
Yeah, you bring those packets to an event, and at the end, Shags is going around every table picking them up. He's got his shirt rolled up at the bottom, big pile of them as he's sneaking out the door. So,
Well, I'm
so
pretty
let
sure that we can get you some seed, Shags,
I
that
would appreciate that.
you don't have to hide in your pants pockets as you leave the
Well,
door.
so
Brandon and I joke all the
yeah.
time about how like younger versions of us would be like, "What are these two really? What? We're talking about bees and butterflies, and how we're planting plants so we can have more of them." The younger versions of us being like the macho outdoorsmen, hunters, and fishermen didn't really think that this was all that important. But man, as I've gotten older, I really have come to respect the insects, and you're just seeing so few of them now on the landscape. It's pretty terrifying.
Well,
It really is.
that's the beauty of getting involved in conservation. Whatever lane brings you into it, whether it's trout fishing or deer hunting or upland bird hunting or being a master naturalist, once you get into the conversion of all of it and you start to see how it all intersects and intertwines and it truly is, a connected life cycle here on the planet, that's what's so cool about it, because I'm already thinking about the part of this conversation that we're going to get to that'll be about quail hunting and rabbit hunting in those exact same, plants that we're talking about putting back on the landscape. So it's not only good for the pollinators, which is good for all of us, it's good for the rabbits, it's good for the pheasants, it's good for the quail. If it's good for those, then it's good for the hawks that eat them and the snakes, and everything is connected through that entire ecosystem. And it's such a decimated ecosystem, the grasslands and the native grasses and wildflowers, especially here in the Midwest, northern Missouri, Iowa. Um, so it's really cool to be part of, the story of trying to educate people, of bringing them back and getting back to what the landscape should look like a little bit more. So Elsa, I mean, you went from working at Quail Forever, Pheasants Forever, to doing this, and and some people might say, well, what a crazy transition, but not really at all, is it? It's pretty interconnected.
It's I'm I will literally say I'm doing a lot of the same things I was doing before.
Yeah.
Creating good biodiversity, great habitat, and it's beneficial. Now I'm making, more quail food, chick food, more insects. But honestly, it isn't. It's the same. The difference, Brandon, for me has been the landowner interest. When you broaden yourself instead of just saying we're quail and pheasants and we're just for quail and pheasant hunters, and you've broadened yourself out to looking at a different species or maybe looking at things in a different way, that audience we have now is super broad. There's just, we pull people in from all over now that I probably wouldn't have got in the door with a discussion about quail habitat or pheasant habitat or deer habitat. And so it's been really interesting, the change. And because I don't work with a USDA program specifically anymore, I'm not working out of a USDA office with a farm bill biologist. I'm not doing those kinds of things. Um, the people aren't doing it with the intent of having any kind of a compensation. They don't get a rental payment. They don't, through our program, you just get the seed and you have to do all the hard work of getting it ready and getting it planted. Uh, and so those folks are usually really, really committed to the process if they're going to go through all this. The site prep is hard to do and it's hard to get it ready and get it going. And they're really committed. And I'm finding that to be a really fun group of cooperators to work with.
Well, who can a landowner partner with MDC on some of the private private lands funds
Sure.
to get the site prep done?
Sure.
See, that's like the equation that I'm talking about. If people understand all the different resources that are out there, then it makes doing these kind of conversions, these kind of improvements, uh, pretty easy and very affordable. So
Yep.
if you're able to stack these, so if you get the seed from the bee and butterfly fund, you can work with the Department of Conservation through their private lands division to get some of the site work done, certainly some of the invasives removed. And I mean, if you really want to start digging, there's also equip and other avenues of funding for private landowners to do good conservation projects on their land. And you're saying, Elsa, that you guys were kind of formed around the idea that this is really difficult to do. It's kind of like the business model of Brandon Maddox at Silencer Central, which was, like, it wasn't that nobody wanted to get a silencer. Nobody wanted to deal with the government and the paperwork of being able to get a silencer. So he eliminated that part of the process. If you guys are eliminating that part of the process of getting your land converted back to natives, then that's a heck of a selling point, because it's just such a process.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give you an example. We have a county that I work with in Minnesota, and it was the reason I'm working there in this specific county is because it was a biologist that I worked with at Pheasants Forever when he was young, a young farm bill biologist, and I was a farm bill biologist supervisor. And he and I met, became friends. his local soil and water district has a program where they work with our seed mixes and the landowner, and they do the site visits and help the landowner. Well, their local Pheasants Forever chapter is donating the soybeans and herbicides so that they can site prep using soybeans, which is our recommended method, and works really well in the Midwest. And so they're actually, all the site prep is really kind of covered by their partnership with the Soil and Water District. And so it's really kind of a neat deal. And so we can do that anywhere. It's we
Explain
don't
that.
mind stacking. We don't mind stacking the benefits. We're happy to have
That's
the
right.
services go out there, and as long as it's a positive for pollinators, we're in with it as a
And
program.
explain the site prep, because Shags and I are sitting here saying like we don't want to mow grass next week, so
Yes.
it's not that quick, right?
Oh, I love that you're saying that, because I get people all the time that right now people are going through our process saying, I am ready to plant now. And you look
Yeah.
out there and it's all fescue or brome. And it's like, you're not even within a year of being ready to plant. I'm so
There
sorry.
you go.
So
So
I'll tell you that,
explain.
Shags, you guys aren't ready yet. You really have to kill out the
I'm
existing
ready. Mine's been
vegetation.
in beans.
Okay. See,
Mine's been in beans for the last like 3 years, so mine
perfect.
is ready.
We like to go in after soybeans, and there's a couple reasons for that. One is there's a lot of bare ground after soybeans, whether you've harvested them or not. Because if you have not harvested them in Missouri, someone with four legs probably has done most of the harvesting for you. So there's not much left over, even if you haven't harvested them and they were standing beans, and you can still broadcast directly over the top of that. We have a couple plots on Thomas Hill Conservation Area that we left the beans standing, or conservation department left the beans standing and just broadcast directly over the top of the standing beans. Now the deer had decimated a lot of them, so there was a lot of bare ground. But these plots, they're 3 years old now. Finally, they look good. They look really bad year 1 and year 2. Year 3, these plots are gorgeous now. So if you're out at Thomas Hill fishing, you can take a look at these plots, because there's several scattered kind of around near the boat dock and campground there. So
So
yeah,
what you're telling me is I need to plant some soybeans in the acre I have around the half acre in front of my house and the half acre I have behind my house. I need to get out
so
here with some heavy farming machinery and lay down
It's
some
what,
like
soybean
all the
rows.
edamame you can eat. Just go out in the yard and pick some for dinner.
what I would tell people is that I mean, maybe on 1 acre that isn't like as reasonable, but how many people these days are getting somebody to come in and put a food plot in for them somewhere? That really is the basics of it. Go, hire the guy that's the habitat contractor that's putting in food plots and have him come put the beans in for you. Um, if not, then you just use like an herbicide treatment, but you have to kill the grasses out completely. I've never had a landowner ever once I've worked with said I did too much site prep. But every single year, people I work with come back and say, oh, I probably put it in too early. And by then, you've got $1,000 an acre seed sitting in the ground that is going to be overtaken by fescue or brome in the next 2 years, or even worse, sericea, in our area. And so you really do need to do that site prep correctly. It's really important.
So
And
doing like
so,
controlled burns isn't enough. Like you have to
no, you
poison.
have to kill the
Okay.
existing vegetation, kill it,
Okay.
and you have to kill it good. But control burns are great for later on, and managing that plot later on, year 4 maybe, year 6, every couple of years is nice to do a burn, and so that refreshes that planting for you. And then you just watch for grass competition coming back in, because we're in Missouri, it's going to come back in for sure. The grass will try to creep back in, and that having that clover around the outside, like a little buffer or barrier, kind of works really well and keeps some of that out as well.
Yeah, it's never a done job keeping your prairie clean of the invasives trying to sneak back in.
But it's not we're making it sound as hard. If you can grow a garden, you can grow a pollinator planting. You can. But if you try to grow a garden by just tilling it 1 year and then just planting it and not weeding and not doing anything to it, it would be overtaken by grasses, the next year. So what we want you to do is to kill its stuff out completely, not just disc over it. Kill it out completely before you start. And then we do have you do like a regimen the first year, the first growing season of mowing, because annual weeds are going to come up fast in the native plot. In the clover plot, they don't, because the clover establishes very quickly, and so it'll kind of choke out the other stuff trying to come in. But the other half of your planting, which is your native half, that stuff needs to be mowed at kind of about a foot tall for the whole growing season the first year. Because what you're going to mostly get is mare's tail, and you'll get some ragweed, which is great for quail, but we don't want it to shade out the seedlings that we're trying to get started. Because natives the first year, they're not going up, they're going down. So they're going to grow their root system and not do anything on the top much. And so most of what comes up the first growing season after you've planted is going to be annual weeds. So,
You got to mow those down.
yep,
Just
about a foot tall. You don't
Fascinating.
want to mow them short because you
Huh.
might get into some of the natives if you go too short. But
well, you mentioned quail. Should we go ahead and transition to our favorite little bird?
it is my favorite bird. I love
We've
it.
got them. I've got them here at my place now. I can't tell you how unbelievable it is in the spring to just wake up in the morning and quail are out there whistling. It's such a distinct sound, and it's like ringing a conservation bell every time you hear one of them. And you've been in the quail restoration game as long as anyone I've ever known. And you're pretty dedicated to this. You and your husband both with the bird dogs, all the work that you do both professionally and as volunteers. Just why the bobwhite quail for you?
I can give you my biology. It's an indicator species, ecosystem health, yada yada yada. I worked for Tom Daly when he was a researcher at Missouri Department of Conservation for my first job out of college. And it was a quail research project. And we got to go out with bird dogs and locate quail. And I didn't have the bird dogs because I was I was just starting out of school and didn't have a bird dog. I fell in love with those things immediately, like immediately, and just I love the birds and the quail. And we did a bunch of different research projects on the area, and they're just such a neat little bird. I mean, they respond well to fire. They respond very quickly, breeding wise, if they have good habitat. I was driving home from that meeting, that North American Monarch Summit, and on Highway 3, headed to my place, I got up a whole covey of quail, and then I saw 4 deer, 12 rabbits, and a hawk, like all on like a 5 mile stretch. It was the craziest 5 mile stretch. I had to call my husband. I'm like, I am at rabbit number 10 right now. I can't believe there's this many rabbits out here. And then I go across Thomas Hill, the lake, and then saw lesser that way. But I just love the bobwhite. I mean, just the life history, the way they live in those coveys, and it's just it's a pretty neat bird, um, and a lot of fun with the bird dog parts of it. I do love bird dogs.
So
Yep.
I've only killed one wild quail in the state of Missouri, and I got it with Elsa. She took me hunting north central Missouri, and it was really cool. I've had opportunities to kill plenty more, but I've never been a real quail hunter, and I just respect the fact that the resources in need of growth. So I haven't shot many. One, actually. I'd like
Well,
to shoot a lot more though. But I think I have to get into the bird dogs as I grow older, leave deer hunting behind for upland hunting.
Brandon, it's just like when you start deer hunting and then eventually you buy a bow at some point in your life.
Mm.
It's just that it's transformational. So bird dogs were totally transformational for me. Now we have horses that help us run our bird dogs at field trials. We've got this whole lifestyle now has changed for us quite a bit, and that's what our time is spent doing. When we're not working and putting pollinator habitat on the ground, we get to go look at some of it, and we get to see different things across the country with these bird dogs that I never thought I'd be able to see. It's been amazing. It's been a great journey.
So what quail is, because back home at my parents' place, they have a couple of coveys, which are really cool, like live in the brush and some of the blackberry bushes. But what's the one with the little dangle thing on the top of the head? Is that the valley? Or the
It's a
So yeah,
California?
yep.
gamble.
California quail, Gamble's quail, Valley quail all have like a little top knot thing on
Yeah.
their heads. Yeah, yeah,
So
they're really
we have a
cool.
bunch of those running around my mom's house, and
Because
it's
you're
always,
Oregon, right?
yes, like
Okay, yeah,
Pacific
I remember
Northwest
that
part of
correct.
Oregon.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
up by
So I
Goodness
went to
Country.
Oregon and hunted this year, Shags.
Really? Where'd you go?
My Oregon story. I can't tell. I'm not allowed to tell, apparently. The Canyonlands in Oregon, it was public land. We went on my husband's 50th birthday trip, and we did a chucker hunt with our bird dogs and I was amazed at how our dogs transitioned they'd never been out west like that ever. And they transitioned the Vizsla. He's an amazing bird dog. And he transitioned, I'll tell you what he was doing 3 days before we left. But when we got to Oregon, the first morning we put him on the ground, he found 6 coveys of chukar. Six
Wow.
coveys of chukar, wild chukar in the hills, in the, like, if you fall off the side, you're all going to die. So you can't shoot them because they're going over the canyon. It was just, I mean, he found them pointed. He held, like, he didn't flush them or anything, do anything stupid. He was
So
great.
I don't need exact location, but like if you split it in fours, were you in the upper corner coastal region, southern, north, east?
That would bring my geography to bear with me. We drove a long way to get there. I remember that. I will, however, say that my friends flew into, um, where did they flew? They flew into Boise. Yeah,
Okay.
so they flew into Boise.
All right.
So let me just say that I have two wildlife biology friends that I have hunted with for 17 years. We rabbit hunt together. That's my rabbit hunting buddies.
Yeah.
And they came out for Jeff's 50th birthday out there and flew out and joined us. And this first time they've ever bird hunted, like upland. Well, no, one of them has gone with us to North Dakota once, but they're not upland hunters. They rabbit hunt and then they do all kinds of other large game type hunting. But this was kind of a first for two of them, and it was amazing, that chukar. I mean, just and I mean, I had to hold the transmitter on the dog and give myself that 50-yard, like, from the side of these canyons. And Jeff's like, "What are you doing? You're not even carrying your gun." I said, "I don't care. I'm keeping our dogs from dying, because if they go over the top here, I mean, it's a 300-yard fall at least in some of those places." It was crazy. It was just crazy different habitat. Really cool.
Well, that's what makes Oregon, I think, so special for outdoorsmen or women, is because it's just the different regions. Like it has a little bit of everything from the desert to like the rainforest to the redwoods. I mean, the mountain range. I feel like you have a little bit of everything in that state.
Well, my brother lives out in Oregon now, and so I have been able to experience some of these other things. We've been fishing, we've done some other trips, but yeah, this was definitely pronghorn, cactusy kind of area that we were in. You know,
Yeah.
very high desert habitat. It was really neat.
Hey, sort of on topic, but a little change. All this quail hunting made me remember that Bill White just started with the Conservation Federation in the grasslands role. How cool is that? So
That is really cool.
the
So
guy
he
that
has
was,
one of our projects, Brandon. He did a See the Legacy project with us. So
yeah,
he's
for anyone that doesn't know, Bill was a longtime MDC employee, climbed the ranks to chief of
chief
something.
chief at Private Lands. He was the chief
Yeah.
of Private Lands. Yep.
So just a wealth of knowledge. His son Andrew's the state coordinator for Quail Forever. Just an awesome family. So pretty cool to see him coming out of retirement to do some big work with CFM and all the partners across the state. So
I wouldn't have seen him retired for very long because he just has so much passion for the
there's just
resource.
people like that,
Yep.
and it's a good thing. I remember one of the reasons I wanted to work for Rudy Raceline was he told me one time, I could afford to buy any ranch in America and I could get a rocking chair and sit there and stare out over, my ranch. But what good would that do the world? And same thing with people like Bill that accumulate all that knowledge. What good would it do for the rest of us if he just stayed on the sidelines? So
Yep.
good for him for staying in the game, and good job to Tyler and everyone at CFM for getting such an important person, back in the action.
Yep. He will do good things. He helped start the Missourians for Monarchs, that monarch group, when I was supervising that position, that Missourians for Monarchs. He helped me find all the funding for the Farm Bill Wildlife Biologist program in Missouri when we started that. And as the chief of a private lands division, that in some people's head that he would say that this is, why is he helping fund more biologists? But that's because we needed more biologists, and he has always had an abundance mentality about conservation and a real partnership and collaborative approach to conservation that I've always really respected.
Yeah, pretty cool. So you mentioned rabbit hunting as we kind of stay on the hunting vein. You and I talked earlier in the year. I had one of the coolest experiences when I went out to Delaware and rabbit hunted with a couple of guys that make YouTube videos. My buddy Taven and his cousin Jeremy. So I was trying to figure out what to do for Delaware in my 50 and 50, and I was watching these guys on YouTube, and my kid could hear the beagles squealing throughout the whole house and comes downstairs and is like, Dad, what are you doing? What are you watching? I said, I want to go hunting with these guys. And she said, Dad, you can't just watch people on YouTube and then go hunting with them. So I said, okay, challenge accepted.
Yep.
I went and did it, and they run beagles. They breed beagles. Taven's just had some puppies. They are so ate up with that culture, running these rabbits in kind of the marshlands along the Atlantic Ocean in Delaware, outside of Dover. I just want to get involved with that. Like, and back to saying I want to get more involved in the upland hunting. It's because I like cover and ground, and I like the idea of having the dog involved. And rabbit hunting with those dogs, it was just it was exhilarating the way that they would get on the chase and you'd get behind them. And how do you even go about? I know you guys do it. Like, how do
Yeah,
you even
and
go
thank
about?
you for that. Thank you for that 50 for 50 Delaware, because I watched you there and I was like, I think I need a couple more beagles. So I've added two more to my pack since then.
Sweet.
So we're at a solid 6-pack now with a
You've got
few.
six
We
beagles.
have a few aging out though. We have two that are probably aging out this year. But
I
yeah,
just got to start hanging out with you and Jeff more for
I
sure.
we love rabbit hunting. I mean, and Jeff grew up doing that when he was young. He grew up in New York, but upper New York, very rural area. He grew up milking cows and working for farmers in the area, and he just his thing. They had a beagle growing up, and he and his brothers would go out and just rabbit hunt all the time. I mean, and so he just loves the beagles, and I do too. I mean, I do enjoy it. It's a lot of fun, especially to take young people. That is rabbit hunting is super fun because there's something always happening the whole time you're doing it, especially for
Hmm.
people to keep them engaged. They may not always get a rabbit, which is fine with us. We shoot rabbits about like we shoot quail, Brandon. I mean, here Missouri quail, Missouri rabbits.
Hmm.
We don't we hardly ever run our dogs and actually shoot a rabbit. We love doing it for the dogs and for them chasing, and occasionally we'll shoot some rabbits. But and with quail we're about the same way. We don't often shoot quail unless the
Was
dogs
that
do everything right. We're not shooting. So
is
they
that
have
because there's a shortage of rabbits?
no, not at all. We just like to
Okay.
run them.
All
We
right.
we don't and we don't have a ton of area, I guess, that we hunt on all the time, and so
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I don't love to eat rabbit meat that much. I mean, I do it because I love hearing the beagles go. And when my buddies come in from Mississippi and Alabama, these guys that we hunt with, when they come up, we do shoot some rabbits. But for the most part, we just catch and release kind of on the rabbits.
See, my grandpa was really into rabbit hunting, and he had beagles, and my dad talks about it. They used to eat a lot of rabbits, and then my uncle's friend, he was a Greek guy. He had a Greek restaurant back where I grew up,
Sounds right.
and he would make rabbits
Yeah.
for us, and like lemon peppered rabbit, and we would, buttermilk fry rabbits. I think they're good.
Jeff loves it. Jeff loves rabbit meat more than I do. I like rabbit enchiladas. If you can put good green chili on things, then they're
Hmm.
good for me. I
That's
like
the
that.
New Mexico
Yeah,
life
it is.
coming out of
It's
you.
a holdover.
Yeah.
Uh,
No.
Hatch chilies, they're good.
Where I mean, all these conservation areas, where do you even go? You don't need to name any specifically, but what are you looking for if you're looking for some rabbit habitat and a place to run rabbits?
Sure. So we've actually had some really good success on some of the MORAP grounds, the recreational access grounds, for rabbit hunting, because I don't know that how much pressure they get during the year. But even where I'm at, I live up, in North Missouri, and even where I'm at, I can run rabbits. Like there's a lot of rabbits this year. I mean, there's just been a lot. I just got a phone call from a friend of mine, Bruce Sassman, that was just telling me that he's seen a lot of rabbits on his place this year. So I think it's going to be a good year for rabbits. But I'm just looking for same stuff I look for quail. I'm looking for brushy draws with a little bit of cover near them. Blackberries are great. Any of the brush, but you got to have some open grassland and kind of open ground around it. You're not in the deep forested areas. But North Missouri is perfect for rabbit and quail, and even as you go into more of the grassy areas, pheasants in some of those areas. But pheasant areas are usually pretty good for rabbits as well. If you've got a thicker grass stands, the rabbits like that. So
we definitely have huntable populations of quail in Missouri. Some people think that they're all gone. That's not true. There are definitely areas of the state where we have pretty good quail hunting opportunities. Can the same be said about pheasants?
On the areas that they're managing well and they have pheasant populations, there are some good numbers. I don't. Your huntable and my huntable might be two different things. I like to see a lot of bird contact when I take my dogs out. A lot of bird contact. Now, like I said, I'm not going to shoot a ton of birds, but I do like the dogs to have opportunities to do it. But I can drive within 2.5 hours of my house, and I can find pheasants reliably if I'm willing to make the drive and go.
In Missouri.
In Missouri, yeah.
On public land.
On public land.
There you go. So that
and
answers
quail every time. Like you can find quail every time. I mean, you get skunked every once in a while. I went out to Oklahoma this year, and my sister has just basically they run Perfection Kennel, the gun dog kennel, and they've moved from Missouri to Oklahoma and bought property out there. And every single time I've gone with her, we found multiple coveys of quail, and it's just a really good hatch year. I think this last year in Oklahoma. And the one time I come all the way out late season, she's like, I've been getting into quail every day on these public lands, every single day. There's birds everywhere. And I bring my puppy, who's finally old enough to finally start going, and I bring her, we didn't see a single bird. I'm like, what happened? She goes, we're going to keep going till we find them. And I'm like, okay, but it's been like 3.5, 4 hours. I think we're done. Dog's done. We're done. And but I think it's funny because some of the research that shows that you only find about half of what's out there on any given day, at least the research that I worked on when I worked for MDC on the quail research projects. And then they found the similar research in Georgia and Alabama that your radio collared birds are out there and you're only finding about half, even with a good bird dog. Even if you have a pointer. I'm not talking about somebody hunting with a Brittany or anything. I'm talking about hunting with a pointer or setter. These dogs are only finding 50% of what's out there on any given day, which means they're probably out there. You're just not finding them that day.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen a Missouri pheasant before in the wild.
Well, my good friend John Wallace, who was the state Quail Forever regional rep, went on his first hunt with us as a new person coming from Ohio, and he's used to going on a lot of pheasant hunts there. And we took him out to a conservation area that shall remain unnamed, but is in northwest Missouri. And we took him out, and he had a perfect shot at a pheasant within first 20 minutes. And we were quail hunting, but a really nice rooster got up right in front of him and flew off. And he's like, I didn't shoot because I thought, I'll have more opportunity later. And you guys had, mentioned, that you hadn't shot one, so I was letting somebody else shoot. And I'm like, dude, you just passed up what would have been like. We don't shoot them every time we're out. We don't see them every time we're out. But it was a layup, and he totally he's like, well, I thought I'd see a lot more later. I'm like, that was the only one we saw that day. So it was funny. He's also the same guy I took hunting, and he actually was taking him. We were rabbit hunting with the beagles, and my beagles like to get up quail too. And he actually shot, it was during quail season, and he actually shot a single over my beagle, who then retrieved the rabbit to him, or the quail to him. So the beagle was running the quail, got him up, flushed him. John shot one, and then that beagle ran over and retrieved that quail to him, right to his hand. He goes, I didn't know that you guys could do this with beagles. I'm like, yeah, I guess. I haven't ever myself, but apparently they retrieve.
Oh, that's funny.
Who knew?
So I am curious, looking at your Bee and Butterfly Fund website, which is beeandbutterflyfund.org. I'll put it in the show notes as well. I find it interesting that everyone on your team is in a different state. How does that work out, where you got your executive director, it looks like from Nebraska, you in Missouri, of course, and then you have your marketing communications person in South Dakota, and then another one down in California. Like, you're all across the country.
Yeah, the California is an outlier for us for sure. I'll tell you that. We tell them that all the time too. Brett, we can't believe we hired somebody from California.
It's good hunting in California.
He's our director of operations, and he does a lot of work for us there. But yes, we are spread out, and we are. We had a gal that I rabbit hunt with quite a bit now that left being butterfly. She and her husband started their own company, and she was from Pennsylvania. So we're spread out, and we're looking to hire another biologist, and we might look in the southeast area where we're starting to grow Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama. We're starting to kind of have a push down that direction. But yeah, we are all spread out. It's just we find the people that are most passionate about the resource and the pollinators, and they just are where you find them. And so that's been I've been able to hire 2 biologists to help me out with certain parts of the job, and one was from Kansas, and the other one was my gosh, he was from Ohio. So we are spread out. It's crazy. Like you get together at these meetings and talk about pollinators, and you're like, well, how are things going in? Oh, where are you from again? South Dakota. How are things in South Dakota? We're trying to keep our finger on the pulse of everything happening in our regions. So we spread them out. We're infiltrating the entire 14 states that we have programs in.
Well, hey, before we start to wrap this up today, I wanted to read a little piece of an email that we got from a listener, a gentleman named Zach, who took the time to send us a nice email, and then kind of just discuss it real quick, especially with Elsa on here, who has worked for MDC, went on to work for other nonprofits, of course, and now being with the Bee and Butterfly Fund. This guy said, I started listening to y'all's podcast about a month ago. I started listening after the CWD episode with Director Sumner's testifying on episode 290. I saw it on Facebook, and I'll be honest, not knowing who y'all were, I really expected another smear campaign on MDC because that's what gets posted on social media. The absolute relief to hear public figures talk out in support of what is being done was beyond refreshing. I've started trying to catch up on earlier episodes. The passion you both and your guests talk about when it comes to Missouri's resources and those around the country are so inspiring. It makes me proud to have people that are as passionate as I am. And every episode kind of renews that passion. And it makes me realize what we do as MDC does matter. So this guy is a MDC employee. His name's Zach. And, you know, it just kind of puts back into perspective that these people that work for the Department of Conservation, work for other, government conservation, natural resources, parks, forestry, all these different agencies that consistently come under attack, like they feel that. And so many of us are so fortunate to be able to use state parks, to use these public lands that we're talking about. I'm going to be down fishing at a trout park this weekend. My kids are going floating on the Niangua River. It's like none of that would exist if it wasn't for these, dedicated employees of these different agencies. And, they get hit all the time. So it makes me proud that somebody recognized that, we are trying to support them. But I think more of us, those listening to this podcast, especially who have been with us for a while, kind of know where we stand. But I think more of us can do even more to say thank you at times to these people that put it all on the line. So we have places to fish and hunt and run dogs and float rivers. So Zach, we thank you for what you do, and everyone out there that works for parks, conservation, natural resources. We thank all of you too. So,
Yeah, thanks for listening, bud. Appreciate that.
and I mean,
I think
Elsa,
Zach,
you've worked for the state government. I worked for MDC. I worked for the Indiana DNR. Like, talk about the people that work there and their passion. Like we were just talking about Bill White. Like when you see these attacks on social media, and the armchair quarterbacks that think they know it all, or the one issue warriors. Like, what is it really like for you when you worked amongst so many professionals dedicated to what you care about?
so, and it just reminds me in Zach's comments very much. Um, people, people don't care what you know until they know that you care. And that's a quote. I'm sure I've botched it in some way, but until they know how passionate you are about it and they know you, like they don't know why you care until you tell them. And that's what you guys do. You're telling people why are these people excited about this? Why do they care about it? And the people that I worked with at the conservation department, top notch, top notch people. The landowners I worked with when I was with MDC and now with Bee and Butterfly and with Quail Forever, wonderful people, just absolutely passionate about it. And the ones that are these outliers are the ones that are on social media all the time, and they complain no matter what, probably. And the people that I've worked with are passionate. I just ran into the guy that's managing these pollinator plots on Thomas Hill yesterday. He swung, because I live close, and he swung by the house to show me some video of the pollinator plots and how great they're doing and what he saw in them. And these are everyday people that really care about the resource. And we're lucky to have that in the state, because we could have people that didn't care. And that's not the case from the top down, really, with MDC, and the bottom up. People care, and they really do. And I just love that we have a conservation department. That's why I'm in the state. I could have gone back to New Mexico, where I got my degree, and worked there. But I didn't want to. People are passionate here, and they care about conservation, from the people that work at MDC to the people that work at USDA, the people that work Fish and Wildlife Service, the people that work at Forest Service. They care about Missouri and care about the opportunity here for us to make a difference.
All three of us are from somewhere else, all great outdoor states too. And none of us want to go back because we love it here so much. Now, I do like that you said outlier, because I feel like those few people are the few but loud. They're just loud. And a couple of them at this point, Shags, we joke about how much we've changed over the years, but like, I would have just continued to get mad back in the day. And now it's like, I feel bad for some of these people. Like, how can the focus of your life be, trying to tear down a state agency? Like, it's just pathetic, and it's just so sad. And,
but not just a state agency, like the best state agency in the country, like trying to burn the whole thing down makes no sense. And I know you have to remember too, social media, like people really enjoy complaining. Like even doing the morning show, like if I ask the question, what do you love, we might get a couple of comments. But if I go, what do you hate, like it will just be 10 times the comments, because people just like to bitch more than they like to do anything else. So my toxic trait is living in the comment sections, and I have to remind myself of that too. Of some people just have some miserable lives, or they're not happy with stuff, and this is kind of their outlet. They feel empowered, and they get interaction, and it's
the attention.
Yeah,
they get attention. They get in that vein, and they know that the same 12 people that think like them are going to continue to stir the pot with them. And all of a sudden, they go from complete irrelevance to having a very small, sad little conglomerate. And now they feel like they're important because they're doing something so negative.
And when we were younger, there was always that one crackpot at the gas station or the diner or the coffee shop that would be sitting there sipping coffee, eating a donut, and just bitching about a department or a rule change or something like that. And everyone would be like, all right, yeah, we get it. But now with social media, all those guys have a place where they can all come together, and now they feel seen and feel heard. And unfortunately, it's not valid, and they find their own little echo chamber, and they just keep getting louder and louder. But we're here doing what we can to just try to be like, well, no, common sense. Let's look at this. That's not true. That's not true. And we're not, like, I know we get called bootlickers and, all
Kool-Aid drinkers.
All this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
The department. And we question the department. We do. We definitely have questions about it, but we're not. We're out of staters. We've seen places get mismanaged, and this isn't one of them. So I think
there's the point.
Yeah.
Let them go to a different state and see what it's like in a different state.
I've
hunted go to Illinois. And
go to Oregon.
Go
try fishing on the Columbia River and see how well that's working for Oregon and Washington and the salmon runs. Like, go to a different state and see what mismanagement really is.
Yeah,
The perspective is
I've
not
hunted
there.
in 37 different states, and I can tell you this is about as good as it gets across the board.
Well,
So,
100%.
anyways, thanks for taking the time, Zach, to say that. We appreciate you, and hope you keep listening.
All right. Well, we want to get to the mystery bait bucket question.
We do.
All right, Elsa, I'm sure you probably remember this bad boy. We've had it from episode 1, even episode
And episode
15.
15, the worst
From,
drunk experience of your. Yeah, I'm hoping this will be a better question than that one, Chad.
I know Brandon's sober now. He doesn't even drink. Boy,
Yep.
how times have changed. So this is just a random question submitted by anyone. So if you're listening and you have one, very rarely doesn't have anything to do with the outdoors. It's just a fun way to wrap up the podcast. You can email us info@driftwoodoutdoors.com or send us a direct message on Facebook and Instagram, Driftwood Outdoors, or even on the YouTube channel. If you're watching, put it in the comments. The question comes from Cameron Lewis. Oh no. What's something you secretly judge people for, even though you know you shouldn't?
Oh man, I for crutch words that are like
Right?
right, when it's right all the time.
I saw your
Oh
comment on Jesse's
yeah,
Facebook post about homeboy being on Joe Rogan's podcast.
yeah, right,
Right?
Like I guess so, man. I guess you're right. Like I don't know. Are you right? Maybe
You know
you're
what I
right.
mean?
No, you're wrong. So
You know what you mean?
yeah,
You know what I mean?
qualifying every sentence with the word right at the end. Like when did that become a thing? And now you hear there's it's just funny how dialect goes with certain crowds. And you can look at somebody and be pretty sure they're going to use the word right in in their conversational speak, right?
Oh no, yeah. And dude, just start editing a podcast and boy, do you start hearing some crutch words like crazy. And I try to catch myself even when I was on with Hal Herring. I remember we listened to it and I was like, why do I keep saying that? Like that was my crutch, like throwing that in there
Mhm.
for no reason whatsoever. So I don't know. Savannah likes to tell me that judging people is like my second job. I always have something to say about someone's behavior. But if I had to pick one, it's probably driving. I am the worst when I'm on the road. I judge everyone on their driving. I like the saying of if you pass me, you're going too fast and you're a maniac. And if you're going too slow, you need to get out of my way because I'm driving just right.
All right, mine. I'm not sure. Did it say you're silently judging? Because I'm not sure I'm silent about this judgment all the time. I sometimes say it out loud when I didn't mean to.
It said
But
secretly, but you can loudly
okay,
judge. I do the
all
same. I
right.
do the
Well,
same thing too.
secretly to myself, but sometimes it slips out. I do judge people about like when they're working their dogs and they use the command, whatever the command is. If it's a lab and you tell that lab to sit, he needs to sit immediately when you say sit, not the fourth time you say sit. And it's bird dog people that say here, here, and the dog doesn't come. And then they're like, here. And then they yell louder, here. And oh, I'm so judgy about that. I'm like, one word, one response. That is how you train a dog. You do not give the command 4 times. And I'm sure that dog raising is not the same as kid raising, but I can imagine if you've asked your child to do something 5 times and then you yell the 6th time, maybe, should have had doing something better the first time.
And
But
you're just training them not to do it until you
exactly.
yell.
You're training them to ignore it until you're screaming at them. And so I'm
Mhm.
that way about the here with the bird dogs and the here command. You just see it all the time. It's like, no, here means doesn't matter. Well, they got a bird in their mouth. Nope, doesn't matter. Here means here. You come all the way to me. If you spit the bird out on your way, that's okay too. We'll work with that later. But for now, when I say here, that means right to me. We don't take our time and lollygag on that.
So now I'm curious, like, how do you train your dog that way? If they don't come to you when you say here the first time and you don't say it a second time, what's the next step?
So I'm lucky enough to have Perfection Kennel, which is my brother-in-law, who is a great dog trainer and has taught me most of the skills that I know. And you just do not ever give a command you cannot reinforce. I don't ever say here if the dog is off lead and gonna go chase a squirrel. I don't use it then. I use it when he's on a check cord and maybe gonna chase the squirrel. And when I say here, give a a tug on the cord and make him come to me, and then I transition. I use e-collars on my dogs all the time. All my even the beagles. And beagles are super non-compliant, by the way. They do not want to do obedience. But um, yeah, you just can't give a command you don't enforce. You have to enforce it immediately if you give it. So don't give it. You don't like I don't say here willy nilly. I might yell their name and clap and say good boy, whatever, to try and get them to come. But when I use that HERE word, that means you will be in front of me in seconds, and there's no you don't get to ignore that command.
That's a good one. All right, final thought, the final cast of the pod. And Elsa, be sure to hit all your socials, your website. I'll put it all in the show notes too, but how can people get involved with your
Will do.
organization?
Yeah, I just want to work with Elsa. I mean, it was good catching up at Logboat, and I've got probably 5 or 6 good acres at Retrieving Freedom. We want to put in the grasses with you through the Bee and Butterfly Fund, so we can solve a couple of problems here, all with one fell swoop. So anybody that has a business like this or a yard, we have a walking trail that I want to extend around our entire property that'll be almost a mile long. We put in the grasses. Now it's a nature trail instead of a path through a fescue yard. You'll see, bird species and butterflies and other insects while you're coming through the nature trail that you're walking at Retrieving Freedom. We don't have to now mow the grass, which is both time and money and equipment and gasoline. So it's really good for everybody involved. We're building the habitat. We're saving time and money. We're giving people a reason to get outside and exercise. So there's so many wins that you can stack up on top of each other. I can't wait to do that there. And then here at home, I can't wait to have it just for the habitat of having more quail and wildlife species on my property. So thanks for what you're doing, Elsa. Look forward to working with you on it.
Yep,
And
I do too.
if my neighbors are listening, prepare yourself for soybeans because they're going in my front and backyard, so I can eventually get there and do nothing but pollinators. But I mean, I'm joking around a little bit, but realistically, we didn't even get into the bees and them disappearing, and if they do, how our food supply and how China is self-pollinating by hand with workers and trying to come up with bee drones, like mechanical bees to pollinate stuff. Like we're kind of in it right now, and if you're listening, it's important to have some stuff out there to help that bee population as well. So Elsa, I appreciate everything that you're doing and your organization, and thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bring us the acres. We'll help you make them the best they can be.
Gear review coming up next. Brandon, into the podcast, the beginning of a gear review. What are you reviewing for us today?
And sticking with taking care of the environment, reusable bags.
Oh,
Like every time, this is an Aldi's bag, this bag gets carried in anywhere I go. Anytime I now find myself without a reusable bag and I've got to take one of those like very cheap plastic crumply bags, and knowing that I and another billion people are going to throw some of those in the trash today makes me feel pretty bad. So plastic is one of the worst problems we have on this planet. So if you can eliminate using some of those plastic bags, 25 cents for this bag, and now I don't have to throw as many into the trash. So hopefully everybody will try to do little things. Nobody's trying to take your freedoms away. You can use the shitty plastic bags if you want to. I'm just saying you shouldn't want to. Get yourself a reusable bag.
All right, with mine, I'm reviewing Umpqua Fluorocarbon, the Deceiver X. So this is 4X. And Spurgeon, our good friend Damon Spurgeon, taught me this because I am a fly fisherman. I'm no longer fly curious. I'm a full-blown fly. But I'm also a hillbilly piece of white trash from Oregon that's lazy, and I don't like dealing with tapered leaders and the real thin, low diameter at the beginning of it. So when you go set the hook, you break your line or you pop it loose. And I was bitching to Damon about it, and he goes, well, just do what I do. When I was guiding, I would use this for everything, so that way even the people had never fly fished before wouldn't break off. And I've been doing that since the beginning. Like I just take this, I go an arm length, and that's my leader. I tie all my flies on the end of this. I use, even if I'm doing double fly rigs, I use this, and I still seem to catch fish. and it doesn't seem to matter as much. It helps that I do fish in the river we no longer speak of, which is a little bit faster moving in spots and in deeper holes where you don't have to have it super thin. But man, that's been a lifesaver and a game changer for me to not use those tapered leaders or be tying multiple different ones all the way down to make them thinner. I just use
But if
one.
you do use a tapered leader and it does break off a few times and get shorter, you can replace the end of it with that tippet as well.
Yeah, but might as well just use it all. That's what I do. I'm a lazy fly guy.
All right, I got to get off of here because I'm going to the river we no longer speak of.
Yeah.
Shags has bequeathed to me the keys to the kingdom this weekend. I will be at the embassy. Thank you, sir, for that privilege.
Yeah, diplomatic immunity, buddy. Enjoy the weekend.
All right, Elsa, thanks for being with us. Great to always see you. Can't wait to work with you.
Me too.
We'll see you down the trail.
Yep.